So this kind of popped out to me in reviewing some things as I'm working through all this material with all these teams, trying to soak up as much information. I don't know that this can be explained. Did you realize this rushing defense gave up 6.2 yards per carry on the road and 3.3 in the swamp? I don't never came across a stat where the defense changes that considerably, in the trenches just because of they're playing in different grass.
Mark, I'll give you two games and why that is so
Lopsided.
The Kentucky game at Kentucky and at LSU. I mean, there you go.
Daniels, what 240,
right,
something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So just look at those two games, and that's pretty much your story. Yeah. That's all you need to know about that. So, Mark, of course, you look at this defense, and it probably does start up front. I think a lot of people will go and look at the safety position because they gave up a lot of big plays, but going to your stats, there's a lot of big plays they gave up in the run game as well, and a lot of it was because it just could not tackle. It was not a very physical defense last year. There were. Just getting past the defensive line, I said it starts up front, but there were times when a big play would happen because a linebacker would come up or a safety would come up and not be able to tackle. They could not limit the big play. That happened time and time again for this Gator defense. But if they're dominant up front, you can protect your back end a little bit. So that's where I'm going. It starts up front there for the Gators. And they're deeper there. Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, both come back. You get Joey Slackman, who was the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year last year, or Defensive Lineman of the Year last year. He comes in to give Florida some depth. They're really high on Jamari Lyons, who played a good bit last year, I think maybe split time with Cam Jackson, not necessarily back up Cam Jackson, but split time with him. And then they're moving Kelby Collins, who shined as a true freshman last year. They're moving him inside to that strong side defensive end spot and are really high on his potential in his second year. Let's not forget about five-star freshman LJ McCray, who is going to be up there on that front as well. So I do think they are deeper, Mark. I don't know what that means for playmaking potential. I think there's a lot more bodies to throw at the issue that Florida had last year, but still have to go out there and prove that just because you have more numbers, that those numbers will actually be better.
Did I get this right that Desmond Watson weighs 440 pounds?
Yeah, Mark, that is a storyline. I think he's still going to be limited in snaps. Of course, he's that run stuffer at that size. It seems to be they don't want him that big. They would love for him to get the weight under control. It seems like if he loses it, it's very easy for him to bring it back. It's kind of just a ping pong situation with Des Watson. I think he certainly has a role, but with Ron Roberts coming in as this veteran voice on the defense, he's kind of plays a no-nonsense style of approach, in how you approach the game of football. So it's going to be very interesting to see with this new strength and conditioning program if that benefits a player like Des Watson so he can have more snaps and help out those guys in the middle.
So the defense wilted down the stretch last year. You mentioned Ron Roberts. What is he doing to fix that?
Mark, it's not going to be fundamentally, philosophically, all that different. Austin Armstrong was the defensive coordinator last year for Florida, still going to be the defensive coordinator, but they bring in this kind of executive head coach there in Ron Roberts, who, like I said, has a lot of experience. It's the same defense, but can you identify some of the things that a young defensive coordinator like Austin Armstrong struggled with last year? Because, Mark, down for down, this Gator defense actually was better than the previous year's defense, but it would be a 3rd and 8 and they would give up a huge play. Third down issues still, they were better overall, but still, crunch time would still miss and they would just give up the big play. And that was the calling card with Austin Armstrong. That was kind of his reputation coming into Florida. Good defensive coordinator, but maybe with more talent, could he help not give up the big play? Well, the big play still reared its head with Austin Armstrong as a defensive coordinator in his first year at Florida. So I think it's going to be Ron Roberts coming in, as I mentioned, tackling earlier. I think starting with the fundamentals, like I said, so many big plays. Florida was actually in position to stop, but would get bowled over by an offensive player that, the defenders are in such great position to make a play and just don't make a play. The offensive player makes the play. So I think it's getting back down to fundamentals. And even Jason Marshall said it, Mark, he's in his 4th year. He's played a lot of football for the Gators. Like he said, he lost confidence last year. So I think going through spring camp, going through fall camp right now, it is getting the confidence back on that side of the football.
Please like the video and subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. Of course, this is David Waters, Gators Breakdown. Make that a destination as well, even if you're not a Florida football fan. If you just love college football talk, of course, from the SEC and from Florida. Recruiting's been pretty quiet across the country for the most part. If you're not in Auburn, Alabama, I don't know if you recognize, they seem to be coming up with the top 50 player like every 3 days down there. They've opened up the vault or something. But on the Florida front, is there anything looming?
Yeah, Bryce Fitzgerald, and let's see, Ben Hanks Jr. Those two. Hanks, his dad played at Florida under Steve Spurrier. He's got a decision coming up in the next couple of weeks. Fitzgerald has a decision coming up in about 10 days as well. I'd say right now Florida looks good for both those guys. But we'll see. You're in some battles with Florida State and Miami for those guys. Maybe Louisville as well for Fitzgerald. So we'll see what it comes down to at the end. But yeah, Mark, those are the two big names that you're looking for right now. On the heels of a couple of weeks ago, Vernell Brown III committing to the Gators, on the verge of being a 5-star player. His dad, his grandfather played for the Gators. A lot of family lineage there to the University of Florida for Vernell Brown. It was a big win for Billy Napier because you were in that battle against Ohio State, against Florida State, against Miami. So it was a big three in the state of Florida battle, and Ohio State, who's wide receiver U right now. So it was a big win for Billy Napier. They didn't want to necessarily rely on that legacy angle for him, Mark. He wanted Florida to pitch, what they could do for him outside of, hey, just come here because your family did. He wanted to be recruited, away from the legacy angle. So big pickup a couple of weeks ago there for Vernell Brown. And Mark, one also probably shouldn't be shied over. It will be a little bit, I think, from a national perspective, but Demetrius Samuel, who was a top 100 player in the 2026 class, he was committed to Syracuse. Florida flipped him, and he reclassified to this 2025 class. So Florida got his commitment last week. As I said, he was a top 100 player for 26. Obviously, won't stay as a top 100 player for the 25 class, but definitely lets you know the potential of him and what the recruiting services were thinking of him at the time. So it was a big pickup there for Florida after they missed out on a couple of safety prospects already in this class. To circle back around and get a player like Samuel Jr. Was a big win for Billy Napier and the Gators as well.